Chapter 4. Jim Corbett and Robin. Jim Corbett was one of the greatest hunters of India. He was not interested in shooting for sport. He shot only furious animals like man-eating animals, whom he killed, had devoured 400 human beings. Jim had a knack for hunting. He managed to learn catapult by himself. Then he knew archery. And even at the tender age of 8, he learned how to use an old broken gun. Jim considered himself to be lucky enough to have lived in a place called Kaladungi, which was situated in the middle of dense forest. In the vicinity of his house were 2 ponds. A variety of animals went to these ponds to drink water. It was the place where Jim learned his maiden lesson in tracking. To begin with, he found the tracks very confusing. The tracks of young Samba and a blue bull had much similarity. Moreover, he also failed to spot the tracks of hyenas and wild dogs and those of leopards. Since he watched each and every animal avidly, he became so good at this that he could make out from the track of a snake whether the snake was poisonous or not. He took night shelter in order to hear the calls of different animals. Soon he learned to recognize the call of each animal. He developed skills that each animal gave calls for different purposes. The call that the mother deer gives to her young ones to come to her to feed them is different from her call to warn the herd that a tiger is coming close. Jim learned to walk barefoot in the forest without making the slightest noise. He taught himself to climb trees. He trained his eyes to jungle. One day he saw a cobra's tongue in a hole of a hollow tree just as it was about to strike him. He quickly moved away. Another time he saw a leopard through a bush just as it was going to spring on him. Jim even learned to mimic the calls of animals and birds. He could imitate the growl of a tiger and leopard so well that often the tiger mistook the roar for that of its mark. As a young boy, Jim was very scared of the dark. His elder brother Tom taught him to overcome this fear in the hard way. One evening, Tom took him for bear shooting. Leaving him alone in the glowing ravine, which was known to be the home of many years, Tom returned home, but Jim sat trembling there with fear that he would be taken by a bear. When he actually saw one, he almost died of fright, but he stuck to his post. Next morning, when Tom came to fetch him, Jim did not tell him how scared he had been, but from that day he lost his fear of the dark. Jim started staying out all night in the jungle. He would make a fire with some dry twigs and then lie down beside it. If he heard a tiger growling close by, he just threw another stick into the fire and went back to sleep. In the morning he would get up and start wandering around the jungle, taking in all its secrets and wisdom. Jim often went hunting with his pet dog, Robin. They shared many exciting ventures together. When Jim first set his eyes on Robin, who was then only a dirty 3 months-old puppy, he did not want to keep him. But the puppy came and curled over his feet and liked him so lovingly that he decided to keep him. He took him home, where he gave him a warm water bath and some milk to drink. He was such a friendly and intelligent dog that Jim began to train Robin to retrieve birds. So when he was old enough, he took him along for his first hunt. It handled in some dry bushes and Robin dashed after it. After some time he returned, dragging the wounded bird between his teeth. A few days later they were walking back home when Robin saw a big troop of langurs. Robin dashed after a langur which promptly climbed a tree. Jim whistled to call Robin back, but the dog did not listen to his whistle. He chased the langurs. A little distance away were some bushes behind which was a deep dig. Robin had hardly entered those bushes when he came running out again, his tail tucked between his legs. A huge leopard was running after him. Jim was not carrying a gun and he could not save his dog. The langurs were calling loudly from the trees. The leopard came closer and closer to Robin, and just when he was within reach of Robin, he turned and disappeared the other side. Robin learned two very important lessons that day, which he never forgot in life. First, never to disobey his master's whistle, and secondly, never to chase langurs. He also learned that when langurs gave a warning call, it meant that a leopard was nearby. After that day, Robin always obeyed Jim's orders. He learned to walk as silently as a cat does in the jungle. He also learned to pay no heed to any animal or bird except the one they are hunting. Robin remained alive to the ripe age of 13, and his grave can still be seen in Jim Corbett National Park at Kala